The heart is of immense significance to our ancient saints and scholars. The divine spirits of the universe have always been known to reside in one's heart, a personal altar space for each of us. Our inner world, the Hridayasthan, the seat of the soul, is where the soul resides. That which is anahata, that which is constant, shashvat. Hridayasthane shashvatam. The Hridayasthan is that place of eternal bliss, pure, selfless, giving, forgiving, unconditional, expansive, soulful, and liberating. On a physical plane, a home is where your heart resides, where one captures the simplest of moments and live out the grandest of gestures. A home is a cradle, a place of your earliest years, nurtured and protected. A home is a feeling, a place for us to express a private and unguarded self. A home where boundaries are not defined by walls and doors, but vastness and openness. A home blurs the line between who we are and where we are. A home is not a mere building. A home is a sacrosanct. So when you build your dream home, you're not only making a place for residence, but building a shrine to hold within its walls the very essence of your lives, for emotions to reverberate and nostalgia to encapsulate. A home is a place to live out in exuberance and magnificence, this celebration of life.
My heartiest pranams to my wonderful, loving family of the Mehras. To convey my immense joy of love and our eternal friendship, mitrata, bandhutva. I am truly delighted that GNA is getting yet another opportunity, and this time to create a masterpiece of your living space, what we've called the Mehra Paradise. It's been 2.5 to 3 months of intense creative flow of energy, which was extremely joyful in spite of the late hours, early mornings. And we are committed to take it to the absolute peak of our creative endeavors. I'm also inspired by the joy of our friendship, which has taken us far and beyond in most of endeavors in life. Our travel, our musical sojourn, our deep dialogues, our professional engagements. So, just to go down a little on the memory lane, more so for the Gen Next who may not be aware of this close to 3 decades of our friendship. It was in the mid-80s when I used to frequent my dear late friend DC Prakash, and he showed me this new product, the Jaguar range. And as I opened, even the packaging was so fantastic, and opened it and saw the products, I said, wow, Prakash, this looks world class. Who are these Jaguar guys? You know? And he gave me a little background about the Mehra family, more so NL Mehra, Uncle Mehra, the founder of this great empire. And after a few years, when we had opened our new studio and I was doing a couple of showrooms for Prakash, and he just asked me, rather, he told me that I booked your ticket, I'm going to Delhi. And I said, what's it about? He said, I'm going to the Mehra factory and some meetings with them. So I said, what do I do there? So he said, no, come along. Anyway, you're not doing much. And in between in the flight, when I still pestering him, he said, you love their products, and more than that, he said, you'll meet another one of your kind. I further pondered. He said, I mean a mad one, he said. So we went straight to the Jaguar factory and then straight down into the shop floor. And all the activities of the tap production was going on. And then also in the midst of us, there was one wildlife which was growling and ranting and at times roaring, And of course I was spared. Since it was the first meeting. But after that I wasn't, which is the beauty of our friendship. And after lunch, in the evening, we got into the S-Class Mercedes, and the Tiger as usual roared. And when the music was on, even though it was close to 28 years back, 1992, I still remember that golden moment of music. The music that was put on was Making Music by the Shakti Group, founded by Zakir and John McLaughlin, Vikku Vinayak Ram, all the great maestros of the world, of percussion, of tabla, of mridangam, of guitar, so on and so forth. And I was exalted into another galaxy, being a person of deep music and having been involved in classical music too. And then exactly I knew what Prakash meant. And another interesting incident was in the evening when after dinner, during dinner, I was with Senior Mehra, the father of the organization, Mr. N.L. Mehra. So I love to hear success stories, and so I cornered Uncle and probably bored him to death. And to cut the whole story short, he talked of his forced migration during the partition from Pakistan, from Lahore to Delhi, and in the bullock cart, how they lost a lot of their family members. And the early days were selling textiles in Karol Bagh and working 18 hours a day. And so the end of it, to cut the story short, I asked him, Uncle, what is the quintessence of your phenomenal success from the 1960s to the last 25, 30 years? He didn't even bat an eyelid, and he said, instead of one line, he completed one sentence. He said, sincerity beta, he said. It was another great moment, honestly, because he told it with so much of conviction, power, and truth. He elaborated saying sincerity in your product, sincerity to your customers, sincerity to your colleagues, sincerity to your employees, sincerity in all that you do to the society, selflessly. And he says that was the core, that is the core, and that has always been the core, which I believe is the fundamental reason for the phenomenal success, the humongous global success of an Indian firm having more than 60% share of business in this industry and increasing by the year, having a wider fraternity of international colleagues and counterparts. I truly, truly commend you guys for this world-class achievement. I really pray and wish God will take you higher and higher. And We at GNA are delighted you embraced us in your partnership as your designers, architecture, and taken me specially apart, made me a part of your life in not just profession, in your travel, in your holidays, in your celebration, in your festivals, in your marriages. I'm truly indebted, and we truly look forward to leave no stone unturned to create yet another world-class dream paradise for the Mehras. Thank you. The design philosophy is evolved around a classic fusion of opposite polarities, and of which we have got, out of the 12 sketches, we have shortlisted 4, and the 4 of them, as I explained earlier, comes under the Zenish, the quadrangular, the organic, and the tropical paradise. The design philosophy of the Mehra paradise has evolved out of deep understanding of my close to 3 decades of being closely involved with the family, and a designer, when he reflects this lifestyle, ethos and values in the living space, it becomes a home. So my deep understanding of this is, it's a confluence of 2 opposite polarities, and what I mean by this is, on one side, it's a family deeply rooted in Indian values, traditions, ethos, culture. On the other side, in what the lifestyle they lead in terms of luxury, in their profession, their world-class products, is something absolutely that of a very high order. And I've evolved this name, the Hridaya Tattvam, as the central grid of our concept. The central grid of the whole concept revolves around the heart space. To me, is what the Mehra family's essence of living is. Very hearty in all that they do, in their relationship, in their fabulous product, which stems from a deep, hearty feeling, and which is why we call the central space, as the Shilpa Shastra talks of Hridayasthane Shashvatam. That means the heart space is an absolute constant or eternal. So we have reduced this into what we termed as Pancha Vaishishtyas, the 5 key elements of design philosophy that's beautifully flowing through the spaces. And what it is the physical space, the sharirik, the Samskritik, the culture, values, celebration, Adunik, the modernity entwined in the lifestyle, the Prakritik or nature or landscape, or the tropical gardens, which is one of the Pancha Vaishishtyas of the whole complex, is going to play a very important role in this program, where the Pancha Mahabhut Siddhant, that's the flow of wind, the flow of spaces, the Akash Tattva, the Vayu Tattva, and the water, how it's integrated into the landscape, and of course earth and other elements of light, is going to be very beautifully confluenced into the whole landscape feature. And Adhyatmik, the joy of living, or in this sense the celebration of life, which is the key to the Mehra's lifestyle. The architectural schematic designs shortlisted 5 finalists from the GNA Creative Stables. We named it the Mehra Paradise for now. And each options have a Western and a Desi name too, based on my favorite 5 Indian classical ragas, which I learnt in my musical Gurukula. A tropical paradise, a Southeast Asian style of Balinese, essentially living in a wooded garden or amidst nature, flowing through the atriums and so on. Rag Hamsatwani, which is common to, or the few ragas common to both Hindustani and the Carnatic tradition.
Our very clear ideology when we set out on the scheme was to integrate the tropical landscape setting into the expanse of the house. Our vision for this house was to abstract the classical rules for an incomparable sense of living in the midst of nature. The visual language for the built form would be product of marrying deep-rooted traditions of architecture and craftsmanship, ancient well-being symbols, and sacred geometries manifesting as celebratory patterns in this house. The tropical style of architecture we choose demands an alignment to its spatial concept, the structure be a low-rise, and almost to be nestled in a canopy of green. This resulted in the entire Mehra clan house on one single level and spreading across the vast expanse of the site. The ceremonial entrance of this home opens to lend a clear, undisturbed view of the vast, lush green indoor garden and to the sound of water gurgling its way to the pool, all in striking contrast to the context of the busy city. A scene of pure visual spectacle. It stirs the soul. The Hridayasthan is, in this scheme, awakened through the splendor of nature's bounty. The formal and informal living areas, large dining areas for all of the family to congregate at for an everyday feast, have all been located in the central axis. The mother's room and of her support staff are closer to the entrance for functional aspects. The site has been zoned to form spatial clusters for each of the brothers, Mr. Rajesh, Mr. Kishan, and Mr. Rajay and their respective families, allowing also for intimate pockets of gathering spaces to enliven them with through chitter, chatter, hustle and bustle. Moreover, the bedroom units all house large openings, which further achieve preamability of the outdoors into the indoors through the view, breeze and daylight. Nestled between a lush green landscape and an endless sky, this home coalesces with its surroundings in a seamless, almost amorphous fashion, blurring the lines between nature and nest.
So coming to the first of the design concepts, this is a Maverick one. So I request you to be absolutely open-minded. This frame is our 5 acres, and we have road on this side. This is the north, south, east and west. We have road on these 3 sides and also road here. Now, what is Maverick about this? I personally feel most of the time one spends in the community space, as in the living, dining, family space, so on and so forth. And it's only when you retire you go to the bedrooms. So we have reversed the process, as in having the living, dining and the general spaces. Of course, in this design, the entire family is at one level, and we've raised the whole thing to the first floor. So in other words, this is the northeast corner where you enter from, and there's a gradual drive up to the entrance lobby, entrance veranda. So you drive up around 10 to 12 feet, and of course the lower spaces is all what we have, the services, parking, etc., etc., the helpers quarters and all that. And this is the entrance facing bank north, that is the Kubera Veedi. We also followed the basics of the Shastras. Now, at this point is a art installation which reflects the whole philosophy of celebration of life. It's a dynamic sculpture. I'll let our product designer talk more about it. Now, as I told you, it is a fusion of the physical space as well as the ethereal space. The ethereal space here to me is this large central atrium. And this is going to be literally like living in a tropical garden. This is the tropical paradise options. And towards the three wings, this is the central wing, this is the southern wing, and this is the eastern wing. And in this option, as I told you, the whole house is raised to around 10 to 15 feet so that you get the best of ventilation, light, etc., etc. And it's literally in the midst of there's going to be intense landscape, like living in the midst of a forest, hearing the sound of the birds and the bees. And as you enter here, you have this formal and informal living, and you have mummy's room, auntie's room here with her helper's room, her guest room and all that. And this side, as you come towards the thing, you have Kishan Mehra's family and room with a central atrium and the external garden. You have Rajesh Mehra's family and his children's room. And this becomes the formal and informal dining. There's a beautiful open court where we also have an outdoor dining facilities for a moonlit dinner, etc., etc. And here are the kitchen, pantry, etc., etc. Now you move to this northeastern side. The largest of the bedrooms is Ajay's family, where we have 7 or 8 bedrooms. Again inside a quadrangle with landscape spaces on the external periphery too. And the whole family is spread out in this 5 acres, and it is interspersed with garden flowing into the atrium spaces. But this remains a sort what I call the Hridayasthan, the central heart space, which the joint family living is the gut of the Mehra family. And this is where you see the Pancha Vaishishtyas beautifully entangled. This is the Prakritic space. You know, it also becomes the Samskritic. There's beautiful space for music, etc., etc. I'll go into that a little later. So this is one of the first options, and in this little pocket here, we've got a service block where we have the essential staff who will be here, and part of the thing has got a lower ground which houses all the vehicles and other elements of the complex. Be it the minimalist splendor, it's a classic fusion of Eastern simplicity, clean lines, Zenish, compact, and fused with the Western opulence and grandeur in the interiors. Also to me, Rag Ahir Bhairav. It's an early morning rag which invokes the spirit of joy of the day.
In this scheme, I wanted to achieve a mystical, spiritual presence that is more elemental and universal. The journey you take from the street into the contemplative space is very important. First, you enter from the din of the street through a thicket of shielding green into a large tended garden. Then, past the entrance doorway to inner courtyard. All these stages are preparing you for a more blissful state as you proceed deeper into the building. A large indoor garden houses within it a large pond of glistening water that serves as a boundless mirror to the ever-changing sky. The sight of impermanence of the vast sky brings upon the viewer a contemplative mood and provokes the inner recesses of Than in the scheme. This deeply reflective and almost meditative spatial conceptualization for the home calls for a minimalist manifestation of spaces through landscape and interior decor. We have proposed a Zen styled garden whose aesthetic is simple and minimalist and designed to inspire reflection and meditation. Natural light too has been the best harness to add a transient element to the design as the hours on the clock tick by and add a further sense of drama. High volume spaces, long corridors, floor to floor ceilings, wall to wall sliding doors, and large jali screens creating a perpetuum of shadow and light accentuate the concept further across the built space. This scheme is sure to add a whole new world and experience for the Mehras to the place they'll call home.
The second concept has been an evolution from what Mr. Namit told from the concept of the Zen lines, where there's an interesting concept of working from straight lines. But the evoking or the emotive spaces we are talking of, what you see in the plan, we have this interesting central space where the family comes together, which has a spill out on both the sides, that is to the western side and the eastern side when we have large get-togethers. But predominantly when the family comes together towards the evening, they can kind of lounge and hang out there, or they can spill out during the Sundays, and that becomes an interesting space here. And each of the families have their own private kind of spaces. That is, you have your, at the northern part, the mother's room and Mr. Rajesh Mehra's space steps out into the large garden. And towards the southern and the western bay, you have Mr. Rajesh Mehra's rooms where you have the master bedroom and all the guest bedrooms connected to that. Every bay has got its small lounge, a family space and a dining space, as kind of previously thought in the previous plans. That's been worked on the similar concept on this here. And the central bay, we have the dining and the kitchenette kind of connected to that bay for to the informal dining, and the dining space. Also one interesting outdoor space has been created there. To the southwestern part of it, we have kind of worked out the spa here, where the pool and the spa works on towards the periphery and the southwestern part, and it's got a separate block has been kind of detached on that space there. So as one comes up, there are two service cores in the eastern and the southern side, which connect both the floors up. So the 8 bedrooms, which is on towards the southern side, where it looks into the internal courtyard, and one looks it towards the southwest or the garden and the pool. And the front, we have the 4 bedrooms, Mr. Rajesh Mehra's, which look into the front garden. So the interesting part about this is everything has got its own privacy, and all look into the gardens, and that kind of makes each room kind of special. And they have different decks which looking out into the private gardens.
See the linear vistas. This is an intersection of the corridors with the quadrangles in the courtyard. Another of my favorite rag malkauns.
Hridayasthani Shashwatam. Cultural tradition keeps us rooted and preserve wisdom through the ages. It's our responsibility to keep them alive and share the legacy with future generations. If the Mehra family values could manifest into space, how would I visualize it to be? I wanted to evoke some form of profoundness of the experience in this home. I wanted to create just not usable, beautiful space, but a space to nurture the sanctity of their being. Every house symbolizes that place of our earliest years and the nurturing cradle of those years. Life begins well. It begins enclosed, protected, all warm in the bosom of the house. It is to be also viewed as simply a place where we can express a private and unguarded self in an increasingly public world. In this scheme, the Hridayasthan is manifested in the central core space, symbolic of the cradle, the informal living, a strong center of the gravity that draws the entire family together. There is to be a dynamic art installation at the entrance of this large atrium. The medium of art installation further allows for the viewers, the Mehra family, to be as much a part of the creation of the meaning, so to speak, as the artist. The vintage classic style of design is the preferred choice for elements of design and decor across the scheme. The most cherished values of the Mehra family form the celebratory crux of the scheme.
The third option has been an interesting amalgamation of hues from the second option of the Zen concept and the first option of how can we get the tropical landscape inside the whole house. So in this concept, again, we worked on a north-facing entrance, and the house kind of gets beautifully segregated to two parts, the southern wing and towards the eastern wing, wherein each has, again, trying to work out private pockets of garden to each of the family members. So as one enters, there's a kind of an interesting segregation between the public and the private space. So one enters, it enters mostly to the public space to your right, and then when they go center, there's a beautiful kind of a large atrium created where there's the informal space become part of the large landscape area there. And so that becomes the main hub of the house where people come in and they can dine and sit there and kind of have chit chat and then go back to their private spaces. So that's how this whole space has been linked. Towards the north and the east, we have worked out the swimming pool here with the northeast water connects there, and one has one of the both the brothers in the north and the eastern part. You have a view of the pool towards the northeast, and to the rear part we also have a private landscape worked out. The whole service quarters is kind of segregated in the south, which has its separate entrance, so it kind of gets cut off from the house. The center of it is where the kitchen and the pantry hub is there, which is always connected to the formal and the informal dining. That acts like a interesting connect into this space here. The first floor again has been connected with two cores in the eastern and the southern bay, wherein the northeastern part we worked out the first floor, the health spa works out on that with a private yoga and a terrace garden worked out there with a main lounge where the whole spa looks into the pool there. Towards the rear, the southern part, we have the 8 rooms. Again, each of the family has been connected with their own kind of a small dining space and also a box room and the maid's room there, and along the 8 rooms are kind of overlooking the garden. The central atrium or the tropical garden becomes in the center, and it's a double-light space, and that becomes the most interesting part about this house here.
And D is the fluid organics. It's a free-flowing curvilinear form, like one of the Panchamahabhutas, the water. And to me, it is a metaphor to Meghmalar. It's a rag which invokes monsoons, rains, essentially water in its flow and fluidity.
The Mehras truly live in the moment. Their joy comes from ensuring each is seen and valued as a person, a friend, a family member who has to come to stay. It is present in every gesture, through words spoken or unspoken, in ways that are obvious and in ways that are quietly respectful of one's time and privacy. We live in a society that is ever changing. Change is constant. How we adapt to these changes is the most interesting ways is what makes the difference. The concept behind this design was to explore the modern trend of family living, to truly observe and in modern society and their shaping and crafting living spaces. The organic circular form at the center is the symbolic manifestation of the entire Mehra family united in the very core. The space is enveloped by a Burmese green and houses within its double-height volume, large living areas for the family. Spaces in this scheme flow naturally from one area to the next without formidable separation. The use of alcoves and nooks and corners create a constant sense of discovery as one meanders through the different spaces. Every space is connected by an organic corridor that flows like a ribbon around the entire house, tying up all the spaces together. This invokes a sense of fluidic movement within the house, reflecting also the fluidity of the water pool of the indoor garden. Plush contemporary style of design and decor in the scheme also allows for moderation of the style in the senior living, while allowing for an enhancement of the same in the spaces of the younger generation.
The wild card option, which is, I know you're going to shoot me down on this, but I've just given it a shot. There is closing cycles in philosophy, and before the essence of it is the gist of it, before a new chapter begins in life, the old one has to be finished. And tell yourself what has passed will never come back. So, coming to this organic options, where the forms are all in a very fluid form, fluid state. This option has kind of divisions and different floors based on the Gen Next distributed at different levels. What I mean by that is, as again I told you, the central space is a huge circular kind of a space. As you enter from the main entry again facing north, you have the formal and the informal living, and you come to a huge family space surrounded again by lot of greeneries and what have you, with a triple heighted atrium which brings in retractable light from top, and all the seniors of the family are at one level. This is what I mean by transcending spaces. That is, you move to the right as you come in. This is auntie's room and her guests, and two guests and the maid help. This is Rajesh Mehra's room with his help, and they face this huge garden to the northeast. And as I explained, the central atrium takes care of the community space. That's the family. The dining again, formal and informal. The kitchen block here, closer to the dining area, and the set of toilets come here. As you come to meander to the left, these are all beautiful curvilinear pathways which flows into the whole organic design. As you turn left, you come to these two quadrants, which one is Ajay Mehra's and another one Kishan Mehra's, and each of this has a very large central lounge. So that is when the kids come down, it's a common space, more so with the grandkids. And here in this quadrangle of the landscape, you have a health club, spa, and so on and so forth, and a swimming pool here. Now there are two sets of staircase. One is near Mummy's room, and one is near AM and KM's room, which leads you to the upper level, which is where the Gen Next are kind of located. So they have their own private spaces. Can we go to the first floor? First floor, and of course there could be different permutation combination on this, and you could decide which way. But one of the options are you have a triple heighted central space where as you walk around you can see the family dining, etc. So there is a interconnection between the levels, and we have three different wings, and one could be Richu and with the family with the kids. Another could be Rinu and Subi's room when she comes. This could be Kanav and Disha, Ranbir and Vidhi. And here is the home theatre, which has a lift and a staircase to come from above for the seniors. And it all overlooks the central garden, and outwardly it looks to this beautiful external garden. So we have this in two levels, where you have the younger generation at the upper level and the senior generation at the lower level. So it's a very arty kind of design. So I'm reminded of this when I was doing this course in Spain, of Pablo Picasso was explaining his my favorite story. his art form, and there was an art critic who got up and asked in Spanish, "En es arte, Maestro Pablo," means in Spanish. He meant, what is art? And Pablo suddenly turned back and said, "En es no arte," he said, which means, what is not art? So to me, this is a depiction of a beautiful form of art flowing through the spaces in the curvilinear forms. So, as I told you, it's a wildcard entry. And E, the timeless classic. It's a traditional style of palatial architecture in its grand symmetry, like the Padmanabhapura Palace or the Alhambra in Spain, Granada, which is UNESCO World Heritage. And to me, this is metaphorical to Shuddha Kalyan, a night raga which slowly takes you to sleep.
The timeless classic option has been inspired from the ancient past. The evolution of the grand places of the stay in the Eastern Hemisphere, what we have seen has been inspired by these various architectural elements from courtyards have great proportions in their built spaces. We see a sense of grandeur and a palatial aura creating a visual balance and harmony. Example, the Alhambra in Spain, the Taj Mahal, etc., which creates a grand symmetry. In this concept, the villa has been envisaged with a large central courtyard, the Hridayasthan, and two residential complexes, the north and the south block alongside it. Aligned in the north and the south axis, the planning has a linear corridor of the house aligned beautifully in a symmetrical space, which acts like the spine connecting all the residential block, which becomes the central experiential corridor with spaces opening out as one enters through these spaces. The north block encompasses the central ceremonial entrance, the formal living room, the mother's room, and Mr. Rajesh Mehra's room overlooking to the northeastern garden. The first floor has Mr. Renu's room and the guests connected with a sculptural staircase. The puja room is in the ground floor facing the east and located next to the mother's room. The central courtyard houses the celebrative spaces or the spaces where the family would spend a lot of time. Dining, lounging informally becomes the central block connecting to the both residential complex to the north and the southern block. The formal and informal dining overlooks the courtyard and connects with the kitchen, which has its own service entry in the rear. The first floor houses the home theatre, which spills out to a terrace garden which overlooks the green spaces. The southern block, which houses Mr. Krishan Mehra's in the ground floor and Mr. Ajay Mehra's in the first floor. Each unit has been designed taking the family requirement. The ground floor has 5 rooms with spill-out decks, and the second floor has 8 rooms with its lounge and utility block. The party space in the northeastern part of the garden has a bower housing, the home office proposed, so the outsider can access without disturbing the inmates and the family. The service and servant quarters are tucked in the rear corner of the site and not disturbing the built environment. The overall grand symmetry creates a sense of order, grandeur in proportion to the whole home, hence creating a sense of visual balance and harmony with lush green landscape surrounding the space.
What I suggest is discuss, debate, dialogue. My colleague Brijesh would be there to explain the nuances of all the 4 designs. And once you feel you're ready with kind of a semblance of the final option, we would come down to Delhi to streamline the whole thing. Thank you. Coming to yet another interesting factor, what I call the softscape of the whole program, is the energy grids. This essentially was discovered by the ancient Indians and also partly by the Greeks and the South Americans. So we have deciphered this in a very interesting modern context where we embed something like the microchips you have in the electronic industry, where we embed these yantras in different corners to enhance the whole cosmic energy, geomagnetic energy and the electromagnetic energy. I'll keep this detailed explanation when I meet you all personally. This has been deeply researched in the modern context as well, how it increases the feel-good factor in any built space. There's yet another interesting idea which we have conceived on the interior spaces, which is Let's Craft India. This is essentially about highlighting the Indianness in our design, the Indianness in our crafts, so on and so forth, in our paintings, in our murals, which will embellish the whole central atrium, the Hridayasthan. And Gayatri and the interior team will talk more about it. But this is the highlight of the interior design.
Trees are poems that earth writes upon the sky. A home is like a banyan tree. A banyan tree represents the divine creator and symbolizes longevity. In Hindu mythology, the tree is believed to provide the fulfillment of wishes and provide material gains. The main tree grows large and expansive and give out aerial prop roots. In the beginning, these take support from the mother tree, but eventually become independent, as well as strengthen the mother trunk. It is a perfect metaphor for a family that is steady and going strong. There's a reason the home is called a nest, homebound, where love abounds, for a break of warmth, food and hearth, earning to soar, innate to its core, back unto the highs, for its place in the skies. At the end of each passing day, the nest in the big banyan tree is where its birds return to, from near and afar, to this place they'll call home.
In conclusion, these 3 months of totally being absorbed by me and Sudhir in the design journey, or this creative journey of sorts, has been very delightful. We actually did 12 options, of which we shortlisted 4 finalists, and the constant being the central community space, and the variants as in 4 typologies in Zenish, organic, tropical architecture, and the quadrangle form of sorts. It's been quite an intense design journey of sorts for the Tiger's tribe. We'll be there once you have dialogued, discussed, debated, disagreed, to freeze the final option and then work on realizing it, the Mehra edifice or the Mehra edifice ASAP, to its glorious beauty of sorts. Thank you.